Yesterday, Mr. Mnangagwa gave his State of the Nation address. We would want to know your take on the address that was made yesterday by him.
Well, a State of the Nation address assumes that there's actually a nation state to talk about. A nation state is a composite, cumulative, geographical formation bound by a common vision with one united common purpose, with certain binding values. And this is the fundamental challenge of Zimbabwe at the present moment. That the gravamen and the gravity of the national crisis is that we actually don't have a nation state. We have nothing that unites us except the geographical boundary of a teapot-shaped country that has got a name called Zimbabwe. However, when you go beyond that nomenclature, you find a body politic dominated by intolerance, dominated by polarity, dominated by exclusion, dominated by conflict, by the absence of a social contract, and by the absence of cohesion. So what is required, and what was required in the State of the Nation, was a statement that recalibrates the entire fabric of the concept that we call Zimbabwe. What are we? What divides us? Why are we divided? Why are we so polarized? Why is there so much intolerance? Why do we celebrate the culture of delegitimization, the culture of name calling? So we need a new vision. We need a new consensus. We need a new polity, a new discourse, a recalibration of what Zimbabwe is as a nation state. And to the extent that the address yesterday did not address this key issue of the social fabric of that which we call Zimbabwe, it missed the point. A leadership point was missed. Secondly, there needed to be a direction, a strategic outlay of a plan to take this country forward. The reference to an election alone without referring to the election grievance that has been arresting this country since 1980 is not good enough. And what is that election grievance that has persisted since 1980? It is that the people of Zimbabwe have never been given an opportunity to freely and fairly and legitimately choose those that they want to represent. We have had over 12 elections since 1980. And all those elections have been fraught with challenges, have been fraught with difficulties, have been fraught with contestation. And this has become a major pain to our country. It defines that which is Zimbabwe, contested elections. So if the statement of a visionary would have demanded how we get out of this difficult crisis, self-replicating crisis of legitimacy and illegitimacy, compounded by November 2017 and the tanks on the ground. That coup compounded the crisis of illegitimacy further. Third, the crisis of poverty. People of Zimbabwe are suffering. 79% of the people are living in poverty, surviving on less than US $1.25 a day. Inflation is over 300%, the highest in the world. So a State of the Nation address ought to have addressed the people's concern, because that's what my Ezra in Dotito is looking for. That's what my Dube in Ngai is looking for. That's what Peter Chimbodza in Otsani is looking out for. And so the ordinary average citizen needed to hear that my salary is going to come in US dollars. But that is key. The ordinary average person needed to hear that there will be drugs in hospitals. Non-communicable diseases have become a major killer in our country. 86 out of 1,000 mothers are dying of giving childbirth. 96 infants are dying upon childbirth. So what are we doing about the health crisis? What are we doing about the education crisis? Children have not gone to school for the past 3 years due to COVID and other factors. They needed to hear that. The farmer out there needed to hear what the government is doing about excessive interest rates that are making borrowing impossible. And lastly, there to be an address on corruption, because corruption has become a major premium on the working people of Zimbabwe. That was not there. So in short, a great opportunity for exercising leadership was missed, and the State of the Nation itself address becomes the highest expression of the crisis that we are facing, which is the leadership crisis.
A lot of critics have accused the alternative government, which is the opposition, that you always critique without giving alternative solutions. You have highlighted a lot of
Yes, so I'll come to our own vision. I'll come to our own vision.
yes.
We have argued consistently that the country needs a new consensus. So the starting point is to deal with the politics that is suffocating the reproduction of life and livelihoods in Zimbabwe. It follows you everywhere. The intoxicating politics of and political discourse of this country. Even a 1-year-old child knows that that is Mr. Mnangagwa, that is ZANU-PF, and I don't like them. So it's suffocating. Yeah. So to get away from the political logjam, we need a democratic breakthrough. But before we go to a democratic breakthrough, there are a number of fundamental foundational issues around nationhood and nation building that we have to build with. The first is the common vision. What is the common vision that we have as a country? And citizens must define that that vision. Vision 2030 belongs to an individual. It's not a national vision. I suspect that most Zimbabweans want to see a vibrant, healthy, just, green, equal society where there's full employment, where there's housing, where there are schools, where there are functional hospitals. That's the vision that most Zimbabweans have. Let's have that vision. 2, let's deal with the contested transitional issues. What are those contested transitional issues? One of them is the issue of violence and those that have been murdered and killed in the past, including Gukura Wundi, including those that were killed in 2008. We need to resolve that and put it under the bed in order to allow the country to move forward. Another contested transitional issue is the land question in Zimbabwe. We dispossessed the land, but it was dispossession for the sake of dispossession. So millions are sitting, thousands are sitting on a dead asset which has not been able to unleash the surplus and the wealth that this country requires. A third transitional issue clearly is the constitution. The constitution now remains an unfinished agenda. Good work was done in 2013, but it has been lacerated terribly in 2 horrible constitutional amendments. So the constitutional question becomes a major issue. Zimbabweans at some stage have to revisit the constitution and find a new consensus based on on full consultation and citizen participation. Lastly is the issue of ensuring that we have a common vision on the economy. Our accumulation model is false. If you wake up Cecil John Rhodes, we are still using the accumulation model based on extraction. Our diamonds are going out, our gold is going out, our cotton is going out, our tobacco is going out. We need value addition in industrialization, a common vision on the economy. So that's number 1. Deal with the politics, including free and fair elections. Including a free and fair election. That's number 1. So deal with that. Now, the political question. The political question must be issued. We are so divided. We are so polarized. If you speak to a Kalanga, and I represent the Tlengwe people, they don't feel like they belong to this country. Over the centuries, they've been displaced by the regime after regime. If you go to the south of the country, the Ndebele community, the Lumpia community, the Tonga community, they feel reified, they feel alienated, they feel like fourth-class citizens. Independence just came in and passed them. What does it mean to be a Ndebele in Zimbabwe? What does it mean to be a Kalanga in Zimbabwe? What does it mean to be a Butcha in Zimbabwe? What does it mean to be a Msena in Zimbabwe? The national question has not been answered. So we need a new consensus that answers that national question. We need to resolve the political question so that we unleash the energy of transforming our country. That's number one. Number two is the economy. The economy is central. A strong functional economy, a strong functional state functions on the basis of a strong functional economy that is inclusive. What is the yardstick of economic inclusion? It is jobs, jobs, jobs. We have an economy that is 2/3 informalized. We have an economy that is not productive. Out of 17 countries, Zimbabwe's labor force is the least productive in Sub-Saharan, Africa. So how do we deal with an economy that is formal, an economy that is legal, an economy that is productive, an economy that is inclusive? So the jobs agenda is in fact a national agenda. The jobs agenda is in fact a developmental agenda. But you cannot have a broad jobs agenda without addressing the issue of wages. And you can't address the issue of wages without addressing a major transitional issue, the currency of use. We are clear. Let's dollarize the economy. Let's float the Zimbabwean dollar. Let's scrap the auction system. Let's scrap auction surrender requirements. Let's scrap the gold coin, which is just an instrument of arbitrage. Number two, on the economy, let's live within our means. Let's pursue fiscal consolidation. What we've constantly called, we eat what we kill. We've been eating elephants here, but we are killing rats. Hence the disequilibrium in the economy, which has forced the government to print money, which has forced the growth of money to grow, M3, by over 300% in the last year. And when you print money, the cost of goods goes up. Hence the inflation of 300%. Lower the taxation regime. Scrap the 5% IMMT rate. Lower the tax on workers. Have a flat 15% corporate tax. So that's on the economy. Number four is the industrialization agenda. The accumulation model is wrong, as I've said. It's based on accumulation. Let's have an accumulation model based on industrialization because you extract more surplus there. So let's deal with the informal sector. Let's deal with the modernization, industrialization of our country. Let's create industrial nodes based on the comparative advantage of its region. We know, for instance, in Manicaland, there's softwood. There are tourist sites there. Let's capitalize that. We know that in other regions, there's cattle. There's cattle in Mashonaland. Let's build an economy on that. We've got the Victoria Falls in Mat North. We've got hardwood in Mat North. We've got agriculture, strong agriculture in places like Mat East. Let's build on the comparative advantages and create these spatial backward and forward linkages in the economy, which are essential for any industrialized state. And let's build $100 billion economy. And we can do that in the next 5 years. Number five is the land question. We must put a full stop to the land question. We must put a full stop to the land question. The land reform program was great, and we don't question it. But what the land reform program did was to take away 19 million hectares of land that was alive. It had used capital. It had exchange value. It could be used as collateral in banks, and we killed it. So land is now dead capital. It can't be collateralized. Before the land reform program, 74% of bank lending in 1999 went to agriculture, went to commercial farms because they could produce title deeds. Now those farmers can't produce title deeds. So we need to kill the land question by ensuring that everyone who is on land has got a title, and a title that can be hypothecated, a title that can be taken to CBZ Bank, a title that can be taken to Agri Bank, now the land bank for security. Because our funding model creates dependence. 20 years after the land reform, we still have new farmers who have to be financed by the state. It's not on. So Let's deal with the land question by doing 4 critical things. We give title to people on land. We give title to people in the rural area. Number 2, we give security of tenure to everyone on land. So if you're on land, you can't be chased away. 20 years after the land reform program, we still can't have farm invasions, which are still taking place at the present moment. Number 4, we must ensure that we don't have multifarious, multiple farm owners, which create wastage, which is the present the case in the present. So a land audit is required as a matter of urgency. And coupled with the land audit, let's have a maximum size of farm per region. Let's have a maximum size of farm per region, so that other Zimbabweans can also be, be entrants in the farm. Lastly, on agriculture, let's have an agro-industrial transformation of our country. We wrote, me and my friends, a few years ago, published a book called The Asian Experience. So we studied about 12 countries in Southeast Asia, including China itself, including Taiwan, Singapore, the Philippines, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and Vietnam. The basis of the massive, in Japan, the basis of the massive industrial growth you have seen in Southeast Asia has actually been anchored on agriculture. And agriculture has been used as a stepping stone to industrialize through value addition. So we can do that in this country. We can do that in this country. The agro-industrial transformation of Zimbabwe is critical. Next, we need to deal with gross capital formation. We need to deal with our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is dead and decayed. So I'll very quickly start with the technology. Other countries have moved from analog to digital. We need to create a digital economy and not the analog, archaic economy. So the use of block technology will be so key in everything we will do. The use of cryptocurrencies and crypto technology will be so key in everything that we do. Block technology is the future. 5G, 6G is the future. So we must create a paperless society. We must create a situation where there is Masai everywhere, broadband everywhere in this country. We need to create a digital society. We need to create a paperless society. Number 2, the state of our roads. With over 100,000 stretch of road in this country. Ian Smith paved 10% of it, but it's gone. So less than 5% of the country is now paved. Yet roads are a driver of civilization. So we need to modernize these roads, pave these roads, make these roads sustainable. That's gross capital formation. Number 3 is power. We've installed capacity of 2,000, but at any given time, only 600 megawatts are being generated. We've now become the permanent blackout capital of sub-Saharan Africa. And 44 years after independence, only 30% of our people have access to electricity. It's not good enough. So we need to do 3 things. Number 1, let's attend to the issue of generation. We need fresh generation capacity of at least 4,000 megawatts. 2,000 will come from Batoka. And part of it should be alternative clean energy. We've got sun. Sun is in abundance for 365 days in Zimbabwe. Let's harvest sun. Let's invest in solar. Number 3, let's harvest wind. We've got huge wind waves, particularly in the eastern part of the country. Let's harvest wind. Number 4, let's harvest our water for energy. There's a potential of 30 to 40 hydropower stations in Manicaland. They don't cost a lot of money. We can generate power through alternative energy. So power is important amongst the things that you have to attend to gross capital formation. Then the third issue is, of course, the railway. The railway. It's a cake. It's a disaster that you don't have a railway from Beit Bridge to Harare. They are celebrating the construction or the repaving of 340 kilometers of road from Beit Bridge. The real issue should have been a railway. And that railway, we need a railway from Beit Bridge all the way to Victoria Falls, from Beit Bridge all the way to Ndola, and a railway from Dola all the way to Beira, Sofala. Our closest port is Beira, Sofala, which was part of the Munutapa kingdom, by the way. So we need a railway station all the way from Sofala to Ndola, because Zimbabwe will benefit because we are at the center. Then on infrastructure, of course, is the state of our dams. 75% of water that flows into Zimbabwe, that rains into Zimbabwe, is lost through evaporation and erosion and siltation. So we need dams to capture water for agriculture. We need dams to capture water for human development. Take, for instance, Harare. Harare, its water infrastructure was designed for 500,000 people. Yet in the next 5 years, Harare's population will be 10 million in the next 10 years. 10 million. So we need to build 4-5 water bodies, including Kunji Dam, including Musami, dam. The same applies to literally every other city in the country. So dam construction will be an imperator. It's part of that agro-industrial transformation. So that's gross capital, formation. Number 6, we need to deal with the debt question. We need to deal with the debt question. We've got an overwhelming, unsustainable debt overhang of over 42 billion US dollars. The ZANU-PF government puts it at around 20 billion US dollars. We believe it's 42 billion US dollars. But the debt question is a developmental question. The debt question is a developmental question, because as long as we've got those areas that we have with the World Bank, with the African Development Bank, with the Paris Club of lenders, we cannot access the huge cheap amounts of money that are sitting at the World Bank, that are sitting at the African Development Bank. ZANU calls it sanctions. It's not sanctions. It's failure to pay your debts. If you fail to pay your debt, you can't expect Nyore Zimbabwe to give you a bed. And when Nyore Zimbabwe refuses to give you a bed or a radio on higher purchase, don't call it sanctions, because you defaulted. So we need to resolve the debt question, because the debt question is an integral part of the development agenda of Zimbabwe. Number 7, we need to deal with regional integration. We need to deal with African integration. Zimbabwe has got a small market of less than 1 million effective consumers. But if we were to integrate in SADC alone, our market would suddenly be 300 million. If we were to integrate with the rest of Africa, and the African Free Trade Area, ACTF, is a good starting point. We have a market of 1 billion. A market of 1 billion. And in the next, by 2045, countries like Nigeria would have doubled up their populations. So the population of Africa in the next 45 years will be close to 2 billion. The population of the world right now is 8 billion. So if we integrate and have one common currency, we remove, customs barriers, we remove currency barriers. Why do I need a passport to go to Mozambique? Why do I need a passport to go to South Africa? Why do I need a passport to go to Zambia? It doesn't make sense. And it's a reflection that the African is still perpetually trapped in the Berlin Conference of 1884. So Otto von Bismarck is still alive, and we're still paying the consequences of the division of Africa. It costs $800 US for a Zimbabwean to go to Cape Town. It costs $500 US for a Zimbabwean to go to South Africa. Yet you can get a ticket to go to France for $400. Why is there no intra-African trade and so forth? So let's remove the barriers. Let's have regional integration. Next is the agenda of our people, health agenda, schools, and so forth. One of the things we'll do that is so critical is to give social grants to our people. Social grants are so important, because when you give a person money, you are giving him some empowerment, and he or she will immediately reinvest the money back, and the government will get the money back as VAT. But social grants help to deal with the poor, with those people that are living with disabilities and so forth. That is key. That is a key. Last is foreign policy. Zimbabwe can't afford to have a foreign policy that chooses others over others. We have to be friends of everyone. We shall not look east. We shall look east, west, north, south, southwest. And we need a foreign policy that speaks to the interests of Zimbabweans. So we need to be good friends with Beijing, and we thank them for building that new parliament building. We need to be friends with New Delhi. We need to be friends with Brussels. We need to be friends with London. We need to be friends with the Kremlin, with Moscow. We need to be friends with Washington, D.C. We need to be friends with Sao Paulo. We need to be friends with everyone. We need to be friends with everyone. So an underlined foreign policy based on regional peace, regional respect, and the respect of international law is required.